Listen, do not even think about becoming a digital nomad before you watch this video all the way till the end. Because there are simply too many things that the nomad gurus won't tell you, and there are even some things that are so dangerous that can ruin your entire digital nomad adventure and set you back right to the 9-to-5 desk in your own country. And you might be asking yourself, what did the nomad gurus lie about, and what are they hiding from me, and why are they only talking about the good stuff? Or is there a catch about becoming a digital nomad? Well, in this video, we're sharing our experience so that you can learn from our mistakes and don't have to make them yourself.
So one of the first things you might notice when you start traveling to other countries is that things might not just be the same and working like at home. So for example, you go around in traffic, you go around, let's assume a story of mine that happened a while ago with a motorbike. You travel around and then suddenly you get stopped by the police. Now at home, you know exactly how it works. You got to show your driver's license and you got to show the papers for your motorbike or car or whatever it is that you're riding around with. And then suddenly the policeman in that country starts finding or searching or coming up with something that seems to not be there. It's just like maybe you drove too fast or there is something broken that you should have fixed by law, and then suddenly you get a penalty for something that seems or wouldn't happen at home, and then suddenly you got to pay for something, and you see like there is this talking coming up about like, yeah, we can find a solution, maybe you pay some extra or something so you don't get into trouble, and then you end up with like $100, $200, $500 bill that supposedly isn't there or wouldn't be there at home, but just because other countries have other kind of mentalities when it comes to law, might not everything be like as stable, as secure, as regulated as at home as it you used to be. This can get very, very expensive and might be something where you're like, what's going on here? What is wrong? And that's like one of those wake-up calls that I had when I start traveling. And it might be legit, you maybe done something wrong. And sometimes I just see like policemen really looking for tourists.
Easy money, Manu. So interesting that you bring up that story, but yours was in Vietnam, and I experienced almost the same thing, but in Mexico. So me and my wife, we arrived in Mexico, we rented this car, and we were just driving to the resort where we wanted to stay for my birthday. Like, I think we were there 2 or 3 weeks. Then suddenly a motorcycle with 2 police officers showed up, and they were like, yeah, we're driving too fast. And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting, because I almost never drive fast because I'm just a chill person, you know? I'm not that kind of guy who has like a very heavy foot, you know? So then he was like, yeah, I have to take license and your passport to the police station. You can pick it up tomorrow or so, and then there will be a hefty bill that you, because you're a foreigner, right, you can pay then in the police station. Then he was like, yeah, or maybe if you got some cash right here, we can take care of it right away here on the spot. And I was like, okay, interesting. Why is your English that good?
Yeah.
Nothing happened, by the way. Afterwards, I was looking for typical scams in Mexico, and turns out some policemen do that, sure. But there's also like this cartel schemes that they run. One of the scams is taking advantage of tourists and dressing up as police, right? So crazy stories. You need to, obviously, if you travel to another country, look up what are common pitfalls in certain countries that you can maybe encounter terms of law. That's a good recommendation, and for me it happened twice actually. It's a weird situation.
Definitely. It's just different, right? And especially if you're from a Western country and it's obvious by your looks or whatever, or the way you dress or the way you walk around, just be aware not everybody is as friendly as it seems. Eventually, what do you want to do? I mean, if they decide to chain you up or put you into like the police prison for a day or whatever, like, yeah, what are your options? Sometimes you just gotta go with that and learn from it for next time. Kind of like the next point that I had, it's also easiest to start with a story when I actually came to Panama, Sam. So
same thing for me.
I got there, I think back then you had these, not exactly remember the name, but like you didn't have these eSIMs yet. You had like this kind of device that would like somehow connect to the local network. And for some reason, it did not work out for me on the Panama City airport. And so like I wanted to call an Uber, that didn't work. I have already used up my 3 minutes that you got there before the passport control. And so I was standing outside, it's late at night, no taxi. So obviously there are some shady figures that are like, oh, sir, taxi. taxi. And I was like, yeah, okay. I think it was back in the Corona days even then. I went with one of these and I did not exactly remember what the taxi cost would be. And he's just like $30. And I'm like, yeah, you're laughing now because you you kind of know what's the price. So like I was like, yeah, okay, like what can I do? Like wasn't using taxometer or anything. And so then he even took me, for everybody who has ever been to Panama, like there's the fast road and there's the slow road. And obviously I ended up being taken through the slow road through the city with the traffic, and the whole vehicle was like almost falling apart. Like I was almost sitting on the metal, like the seats were that bad, in such a bad condition.
To put this into perspective, some people drive around with cars that are only hold together with duct tape, and this was probably one of those.
Kinda, yeah. And I figured out that I was like charged triple the price eventually. Like when I went back to the airport, it was like $8. Much better car, was private car. And this is just one of the classic example with taxi drivers. Same happened in Thailand. Once you're going out somewhere in the tourist district, people like, actually taxis are really cheap there, for example in Bangkok. But if you are in the tourist spots, like they will not let you use taxometer. Everybody's trying to rip you off. And this is just stuff that I would say, like where we grew up, Sam, that is not happening. It's just very clear, like, okay, of course in the taxi use taxometer, and there is not stuff like that.
One thing that I have to mention in terms of taxis, I'm always very careful with taxis. When I came to Panama the first time, for example, I was just driving around in taxis all day, like one after another, these yellow cabs, right? And then one of my friends told me, bro, this is one of the most dangerous places in the country. If you look up the statistics, like more than 60% of the criminality is performed in those taxis. So one of the scams, for example, is they take you in a taxi, then they drive you into a ghetto and say, okay, now you give me like everything that you got on you, right? Or give me $20 or give me $50, what have you. Give me all your cash, or I will drop you off here in the ghetto. So things like that, or they just rob you or so. So my recommendation is always use an app that is very secure, like Uber or other apps that are out there, right? Just use a rideshare app which has some safety features in there, because you never know.
Never know. Happened everywhere to me as well. Bali, Thailand, Panama, as you mentioned, Turkey. Like as soon as you start, you're confronted with that.
And so the next point brings me to taxes. So if you're traveling a lot, obviously you're not going to pay taxes in your home country. Let's say you're not from the US and you're traveling for like full time, you're not going to pay taxes in your home country. But depending on where you stay, it could be that you trigger some taxes in a foreign country. And let's say you go to Japan or so and you stay there for, let's say, 6 months, then you might trigger Japanese income tax. And this is where people do a lot of visa runs, etc., etc. And this is a thing that you have to look out for, right? So if you want to have this lifestyle and you want to live tax optimized and everything, it might make sense to get like a residency somewhere where you're not taxed, right, on paper or something, so that you don't trigger anything by accident, and keep that in mind.
And maybe like someone watching this right now is like, how do they know? Like, how would that happen? It's very simple. Once you enter the country, they scan your passport. Once you leave, they scan you again. So if you exceed certain conditions that keep you from paying taxes, then suddenly you do pay. Also, like with the stuff you just mentioned, the visa run before, I know people that are overstaying in countries, and that can lead to hefty fees as well. Once you're exiting, like they will not let you exit country, and you have to like somewhere go to the police office at the airport and pay a good amount of money to then like clear all the stuff that you messed up. So there are a lot of stuff coming along with that.
Yeah, another thing when you start becoming a digital nomad, there's just some things like scarcity, like, or anxiety that you really need to counter, because when you're traveling like full time or you're an expat or something, there might be some existential fears or so. Like, for example, what if I can pay my bills or so, right? What would happen then? Or if I bankrupt my business or what have you? Like all of these risk things that you maybe have in your mind, they are even worse now. So what I recommend for everyone is that you have some sort of emergency fund, right? So that you can at least get yourself a ticket back to your home country, so that you can have actually some peace of mind. So no matter what happens, you can always go back.
Absolutely. And when you speak of finances, there's like more to watch out for. So for example, imagine this, you just arrive to a new place, you land there, you arrive at the hotel, and the reception asks you to pay your bill for the stay. That's pretty common. You take your card and it just says no, not accepted. And maybe you try another one. For me, a common one, for example, might be I tried the Amex. I tried usually not that much welcomed in the places I go, but I still tried. And then I have a backup card, which is the Visa. So I tried a Visa, and now that one doesn't work as well. And I do have some more backups by now, but it already happened to me that then suddenly that one doesn't work as well, even though there's money in the account. And when you start looking into it, like maybe the app, it says like, oh, for some reason your account has been flagged for like how you say that?
Suspicious activity.
Yes, suspicious activity. And we need to verify your documents. Unfortunately, of course, it's going to be like a Friday night. You arrive at 11. So there is nobody working for the next 2 days. You upload your stuff and you cannot pay at the hotel. And now, I mean, maybe you're there with a friend so you can somehow back up each other. But I tell you, if you're alone, good luck with that, like in that situation. So there are things to watch out for, like having backup bank accounts.
Backup credit card. I was once robbed, Manu, and my wallet was gone and everything. And since then, I learned that you always need to have like a credit card or so inside of your suitcase in case you get robbed.
Good one. Also some
or you
cash.
leave your wallet in a restaurant or so.
Absolutely. Also, I would do that with some cash, universal accepted cash, like US dollar, euros, something not too crazy currency wise that just works on a global scale. In case something happens, you can just go there and exchange that, and it's like generally accepted. Absolutely. And speaking of online banking, I mean, PayPal is our absolute favorite. A big shout out to PayPal.
That's sarcasm here.
Yes, that's absolute sarcasm here. Business wise, we had so many incidents with that company, and it's just not fun anymore at this point, especially when you have like a business and there's like advertising spend behind that, and then you need that money to pay your bills or like the business bills. It's not fun, but it happens. It happens a lot, and it happens with private account, it happens with business accounts, it happens with online, offline accounts. Yeah, just be careful. And then another thing is like that I just mentioned, once you're like traveling alone, for example, you have nobody to back you up. It also like is quite fun in the beginning. You taste the freedom. There is nobody you have to depend on. You can just go around and have time of your life, explore things, get to know new people. But at some point it happens to almost anyone that you're gonna feel you miss the people at home. Like the talks you had, like is it just the language, the topics, people that get you, family, and so on, like the workmates that you maybe had. And it's getting kinda lonely because you're now like the foreigner in some foreign country. It's clearly obvious. You maybe like, if you're lucky, if you can speak the local language, like if it's...
And Manu, the worst part about it is that when you're, let's say you go to Thailand for 2 months or so, right? Nobody wants to be your friend, like your real friend, because you're leaving anyway, and you will find that over and over again. So you need a community that is on doing the same thing that you do, right?
Absolutely. And this is what I was coming to in regard to a solution. Like once you meet people and you've been in the game again and you opened yourself up to like meeting like-minded people, it happens quite often to me these days that I go somewhere and then there's like somebody else is like, oh, I'm here as well, like let's meet up, and you have that connection again. But I tell you, like in the beginning that wasn't there, and it was like a very, very, very lonely kind of trip.
And let's say you are on those trips and you are a digital nomad now. Like back home, you have a great insurance system. The healthcare system is awesome. Let's say you have an accident or so, the ambulance, for example, in Europe, they will pick you up for free, get you to the hospital, and if you stay like 5 nights and you come home, you get the bill and it's like $50 or so. There are countries, like for example, United States, where after 5 days in the hospital, it could be like 60 grand or something, right? So you have to be aware of the health system and the insurance system. And for people who are getting their feet wet and becoming a digital nomad, they don't know how to insure themselves and their health when they are traveling the world. And there are actually some companies who allow that. And we can do another video on that in the future if you would like to have like a comparison or so, or a review of some companies that we use for that. But it's very important that you have something in place just in case something bad happens, like in what we're going to talk about next with food quality.
Oh yeah, where should I start? I mean, as beautiful as those places are, you get diverse food, you get new cuisines, and some of them are really freaking delicious. But again, like as with everything, things are a bit more blurred in terms of like regulations, and so things don't have to be that clean because maybe they're not checked like in Western countries where there is like some inspector coming and checking like if everything everything and the last corner of the kitchen is clean. No, some people are just cooking on the street next to the traffic. The meat is in the sun all day. And how many times I felt that, like I've ordered something, you don't know where it's coming from when you use those apps,
or on
right?
planes, or on
Yeah,
planes.
yeah. You have some story about that too, right?
Yeah, that's a story for another video.
Okay, yeah, we leave that. But essentially, yeah, just be careful, and then maybe also like have some kind of maybe like prevention with you in case you get food poisoning.
Antibiotics.
Yes,
Yeah.
for example. If it didn't happen yet to you and you think you are the exception, just wait for it. It's gonna happen sooner than later.
Yeah, but then there's the most important part that by far nobody is gonna tell you, because they're always just telling you sunshine and rainbows, but you need to have this one thing nailed if you want to become a digital nomad.
Yeah, so we have done this summit recently where we spoke to like over 70 experts. We heard their stories, how they got started themselves, and we also had like thousands of participants sharing their stories, asking questions, and just seeing like how people started. There is like this big common misconception that people just go there and think they can figure things out on the fly, which means they jump over to Bali and think they can work there as a freelancer or start their online business. But essentially they end up like super undercharging themselves. They look up some stuff online, like what are the other people doing? Other people are undercharging themselves as well. So I'm gonna do the same. And then they work 12 hours, 16 hours in Bali to make ends meet. And essentially like they could have just stayed at home. Like
They
there is no time.
themselves another weirdo job.
Yeah, and so like what's for most people missing there is two major things. One is that Sam will explain in a moment, but the other thing is like really being able to like communicate effectively, understand like how you can make a deal happen, like how can you win a client, how you can negotiate something that works in your favor so you actually can have an advantage of the work you do and not just do work for the sake of work and to pay your bills, but actually get some of that freedom and get like things as you wish them to be, and not just like as it was at home where somebody else told you what to do and you said yeah I will make that happen. Yeah,
So you basically need the foundation, which is learning how to close deals, right? Every business needs some sort of revenue, right? And the most important skill is that you can turn a stranger into someone who actually buys something. And then there's the thing with what aligns with your passion, right? Like, so you don't create yourself another job that you hate. And actually we have made another video on that. And in this video, we're sharing the 7 side hustles that work really well for digital nomads. And actually the last one is our favorite. And if you want to watch that one, you can just click right here.